5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Bean, and thank you to the witnesses for your testimony. Very much appreciated it. I want to reiterate that the federal government does not and should not dictate curriculum. And you're using the term critical race theory without really defining it. And as you likely know, is a legal theory posited by Derek Bell, who happened to be the dean of my law school, but is not a K-12 issue. I have to say, your own witnesses, Mr. Chairman, support an accurate teaching of history. And I don't think any of us debate that students should be taught an accurate rendering of history. I support a public school system where every student has access to a well-rounded education that includes civics and the arts and the humanities. In fact, Dr. Atkins, you make a very good case for liberal arts education at the university level, and it's a conversation I hope to have someday in the higher education subcommittee. I don't think you will find a disagreement about that, but you mentioned also the lack of confidence in higher education. I've sat in this committee for several years and heard numerous times my colleagues on the other side of the aisle bash higher education. And I recall several years ago a senator who was once running for president saying we don't need any more philosophy majors, we need more welders. I happen to think we need both. Does anybody disagree that we need both philosophy majors and welders? Nobody's raising their hand there?
I like welders that study philosophy.
Perfect. But this is supposed to be a hearing about K-12 curriculum, but we are not a school board. And instead of discussing the details of what schools are teaching, we should focus on who has access to high-quality learning environments. And that's something that does, in fact, fall under the purview of the federal government. Our focus should be on equity of opportunity, and it's impossible to achieve educational equity when school segregation remains pervasive. Many more students attend schools in high-poverty districts than low-poverty districts, yet high-poverty districts spend about $1 billion less on capital construction. So, Mr. Kennedy, how does the investment gap exacerbate segregation, and why is it important for Congress to include funding for school infrastructure in its year-end funding package, as well as the next fiscal year budget to make long-term investments in new school construction?
Well, thank you for the question. Yeah, the inequity in our school system is really reflected in the facilities that the students are attending. As you mentioned, high poverty schools are not in a position to do the kind of financing that other schools can do. The vast majority of funding for school facilities comes from the local level. The State of Our Schools report indicated it was about 77% local, which is mostly based on property taxes, 22% state, and the federal government at 1%. So the inequity in our educational system is reflected throughout in every aspect of education, and it sends a bad message to students that we send them to go to schools that are falling apart.
And on the contrary, think about the message it sends for students to go into a school building that's fully equipped and healthy. In the district I happen to represent, I have some brand new school buildings in wealthier districts, and I have some really old buildings that are in need of desperate repair, particularly in the more rural areas. So when you think about investments in school infrastructure, it sends a message to low-income students that we don't care about their communities, and to if they're in rundown buildings or lack the resources. What message does it send to parents? What message does it send to the community? And how does having a dilapidated and outdated school building affect the surrounding community as well as the students who go to school there?
So I guess another aspect of that is that the fact that going to school is mandatory. So we're requiring students to spend 6 to 8 hours a day, and sometimes in buildings that are safe and unhealthy. So as I said, it sends a bad message to them that we don't think their education is important, that we don't think they're important, that their community hasn't invested in them.
And when a new school building is built or a building is renovated, what does it do to the surrounding community and the property values?
It helps. And it also creates jobs, good-paying jobs that are career-sustaining jobs. It creates other jobs in the community for suppliers and others who participate in that. It reflects throughout. Investment in infrastructure is an investment that creates growth and so pays for itself to some extent.
I appreciate that, and I'm just about out of time, but I want to reiterate to my colleagues, this is something we can and should be doing. We want every student to be learning in a building that is safe and clean with safe drinking water and the technological advancements that they deserve. So I would like to see that investment made, and I urge my colleagues to continue the conversation, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you very much.